All right, we are here, and it is session number 6.
Yay!
It's been a month and a half. Yes.
I know.
I'm proud of us.
How are things with you? I'm proud of you too. I was
Good.
just looking at your data before I hopped on, and definitely, seeing consistency in tracking, and still need to work on the protein a little bit. So, what do you feel like is still a limiting factor? Were you able to track down maybe not the Fairlife shakes, the Core Power shakes, but a protein shake, a ready to drink protein
I
shake?
got the Core Power. I drank some of it not yesterday, maybe the day before. Because I was like trying to get to like 100. So I had like a quarter one. I mean, I thought it was still, it tastes like a chocolate milk. So
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I found that. I didn't find the Fairlife. Is that what you said? The name of the
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have the milk at my supermarket, but they had just the Core Power chocolate. So I got that. And I like that.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I'll
Awesome.
try a different grocery store to see if maybe they have more, variety or whatever. But I don't feel like I'm like necessarily struggling with it. I feel like I've gotten better for sure over time. Like it's going
100%,
up.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's just gonna be like you said, supplementing maybe just like with the shake. If I haven't reached it, it's gonna like get me to the number and doing it that way. So yeah, that's kind of what I did this week when I felt like I was like super low one day. I was like, okay, just like see if the shake can get you, to the goal. And I've also been trying to increase carbs a bit and seeing how that goes too. And I think like I was like, oh, I kind of have more energy. I don't know if energy is the right word, but I was like yesterday had a lift session and I was like famished like after. And I ate so much pasta, but I felt fantastic. Like I was like,
that's awesome. Yeah.
In a vat of pasta. Yeah, I think with that though, I was like, oh, this would have been an opportunity to use like twice as much ground turkey as I normally do, but I hadn't thought about it beforehand. Because I was like looking at the actual amount of ground turkey and was like, oh, you could be using like way more. Because I just made it the way I always make it, as opposed to with the protein in mind. So that was kind of the only thing that I was like, okay, next time I do like a pasta thing, I'm gonna double the protein myself.
Yeah, that's perfect.
But feeling good. And funny enough, so my gym offered me like a free like assessment, like a free 2 sessions. And I was like, cool, because I was curious as to what the in-body would say compared to the DEXA scan I'm taking tomorrow. Like to have them to be able to like side by side how different they are in accuracy kind of. But because I've been going to this gym for so long, it actually still has my data from like 2019 or something. So I was like, oh, this is great for me to be able to see over multiple years, like where I'm falling at. And, obviously we know the DEXA scan is a more accurate look, but even with the in-body, this is the most lean muscle mass I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was really happy with that for sure.
So it might be also interesting for you to find pictures of yourself back from when you did that first in-body and comparing your body composition based on having more lean muscle now as opposed to when you did that initial check-in.
I mean, it wasn't pictures. It's just like literally the data points. Like it kind of just shows you like
right. But what I'm saying, so that gives you a visual. This is what my body looked like at this amount of lean mass versus what I look like now with this amount of lean mass. I think that would also be an interesting like touch point to kind of, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I can I think in my head, and like you said, it's so great that this is now going to be a touch point. In my head, when I was at my heaviest, I was like, it's the number that I have in my head, right? It's the weight number. And right now, I'm maybe like 7 or 8 pounds lighter than that. So that's part of why I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like almost there. But I was like, my lean body mass is completely different. How my body looks is completely different. And it was so helpful to be able to have data that supported like what, you know, or maybe countered what my mind would like to go with, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, we, like you were saying in the last session, how much we ascribe to the number, because that's kind of what we've been taught to focus on, and what our society focuses on. So it was really great. And then, like, you know, because when they do the assessment, they make you do like different mobility tasks and like things like that. And I'm always curious as to how I do with those things. Like, I'm always like, what is, like, how am I doing? Wait, you can tell me how you think of what you think of those after. But I was just like, because now I'm doing it at the oldest I've ever done it. I was curious as to how different, better, not, you know, whatever. And she was just like, yeah, you kind of 100%ed on them. And she's like, people who are 10 years, she's like, struggle with some of this. And I was like, okay, then I'm hitting the goals I have personally for myself. And that makes me proud of me.
Absolutely. No,
yeah. I'm curious to say, you made a face with those. I want to know why.
Because those are a vehicle to sell training. Those are a vehicle to tell you there's something wrong with the way that you move and have nothing to do with the functionality of your life. Like, I have varsity basketball athletes that can't touch their toes without bending their knees, but you're going to tell me they're not going to pass like a sit and reach test so that there's something wrong with their mobility, or they're, you know, like, it's arbitrary and it's lacking context, right? And even to take it a step further into like the athletic performance sphere, like, there are very talented athletes that have very fucked up strategies for how they move, but that's almost their superpower, right? And I think we touched on this before, if I were to change that and make them have the perfect squat, the perfect hinge, the perfect sprinting mechanics, I would take what they already do well and completely restructure it. I'm going to maybe slow them down. I'm going to make them, you know, less strong, because how they move is what makes them special and good at what they're doing. Now, the caveat in there is, do they have pain? Like, is there something that in the way that they move that is causing some sort of like structural discomfort or pain? In that case, we might address it. But oftentimes, if you can't do an arbitrary mobility test, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your body, right? It should be more dictated upon, like, okay, how do you feel in your day-to-day life? Well, every time I go up or downstairs, my knees don't feel great. Okay, great. That's a better jumping off point for what you might need. And I think why you did so well on those tests is because you're strength training and because you're moving through a full range of motion with weight. I think we have it's almost inverted in terms of like what the prescription should be if you can't do the thing, you know?
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Yeah, so they, you know, I told them, I'm like, I have a trainer already, me and Sam, you know, till the end. So they know that. But I was like, I also don't say, look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, you want to give me something, I'm going to say yes. But it was good. Like, I'm glad I got that in body. So now we also can have that side by side with the DEXA. And I can see that, you know, years worth of data on one sheet, because I had forgotten. I didn't realize it was going to keep all of that. Like, it really had all the way back, you know. So it was good to be able to.
Sorry.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of been, you know, it for me, and just trying to track better. And, you know, I put all the weight input from before in for you, so you could see that.
Great.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, and it looks like you're very, like, we're in maintenance right now. And I like to keep people in maintenance to kind of like learn what it feels like to eat at maintenance in terms of like hitting a good amount of protein and carb and fat and then make adjustments from there. But what I usually like to adjust first before going straight to cutting your calories are other lifestyle interventions. So you're already doing the strength training piece. Usually that can be super impactful for someone who maybe hasn't strength trained before. That's great low-hanging fruit. Getting more steps is another piece of really, really easy low-hanging fruit that's easy to integrate into pretty much anyone's lifestyle. So I always go there first before saying, okay, and now let's go and adjust your calories. So that being said, how did we do with our steps this past week?
You're going to be so proud of me. Truly, I almost posted it on Instagram and tagged you to be like, Taylor's going to love it.
Yeah.
So Saturday, 7,710.
Okay.
7,734 on Sunday. Monday, 9,252.
Wow.
Tuesday, 5,828. And then yesterday, 5,202.
Excellent. Love it.
Yeah. So let me see if it'll just tell me the average. Oh, I've been averaging 6,668 steps over the last week.
Awesome. So I think keeping that momentum going into the next week and then being really, so like obviously this past weekend was a holiday weekend. So I'd expect to see some natural spike on the scale because we might be indulging in things we might not normally. I would say in the next stretch of 7 days between this week and next, still commit to that step count, really, really commit to your macros, and then let's see how the scale shakes out.
Okay.
Because I think this is going to be like, now that we've kind of gotten into the habit of getting more movement, let's continue that momentum, have a little bit more of a compliant week in terms of like what we're eating, and then see kind of how it shakes out from there.
Mm-hmm. Totally makes sense. And so, and it's kind of it's been nice to go outside and go for a little stroll.
Yeah, I bet.
Go on
your hot girl walks.
Yeah, I go to the same coffee shop. So like I got there a little later today, like when I walked over, and the barista, he was like, "You're here late." I was like, "Are you?" I said, "Yeah, I had stuff." And then I walk here, and he was like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "Oh, I live like 15 minutes away." He's like, "That's a long walk." And I said, "It's not that long."
Like, thank you.
I know. I was like, "Thanks." I was like, "It's not that bad, like 15 minutes." And he was like, "I live 2 minutes from here."
And I still drive.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, I'm getting out of the habit of driving and, like walking to the gym some days and like stuff like that. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
And the World Cup also, because then I can just walk to the bar and be like, oh.
Yeah, perfect. Love it.
Okay. Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Should we dive into supplementation?
Yeah. So today's topic is the hyper-fixation on supplementation. And I'm going to let you kick off with your thoughts. I know you have thoughts on this.
I have thoughts on this. And I think the biggest thing to remember is that supplementation is just that, right? Mm-hmm. It is not meant to be the main modality in which or the main thing within our lifestyle, right? So even when it comes down to protein, like you can supplement protein, but are you getting all of your protein intake from shakes and powders, or are we trying to integrate more whole foods into our diet to reach that protein goal? Like, are we using it as a crutch, which to me is not really a supplement then it's more of an over-reliance on something that is meant to fill in the gaps and not meant to make up the entirety of whatever it is we're trying to consume. And that goes for anything, right? Like your vitamins, your minerals, your electrolytes, those sorts of things. So we can oftentimes like round out what we need through whole foods. That is the preferred method. But if we are falling short, then it's the time for supplements. And I think my issue, it then becomes supplements are sold to us as like the magic quick fix. All you're missing is this one thing, right? It's sold as the golden ticket to why you're not able to accomplish what you've been struggling to accomplish, without taking into consideration, like, what's the circumstance of your life? Like, what are your other habits? What else do you have going on that maybe prevents you from getting whatever it is you need to get from more whole food sources?
Yeah. And I think of like, being about to be middle aged and having conversations with a lot of my girlfriends, especially where we get told to take a supplement or go get this shot or whatever, and oftentimes it's actually like a health cause. It's like, no, I'm not absorbing some of the whole foods that I'm eating. What is the reason for that? As opposed to just being like, here's the band-aid of just take this iron supplement. Well, why am I not absorbing iron?
Or maybe I'm not eating enough foods that have iron in them.
Right. So how do I change that? Or how do I do better? And I think it doesn't sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, it's capitalism. Like everyone wants to sell
100%.
something
100%.
as opposed to being like, what is the reason for this issue, the underlying cause? How do we address that? And like you're saying, oftentimes it's going to be like whole foods. It's going to be, a simpler, cheaper fix than what is being presented to us as the answer. And I'm curious as to your thoughts about like supplementation, but specifically within like the wellness community and like this idea of kind of almost like you cannot reach your goal, your ideal, unless you are supplementing in some sort of way.
Well, again, I mean, you nailed it. It comes back down to capitalism and down to the demonization of like big pharma, right? So, which is such an odd, like, I can't even think of the word, but like to blame big pharma why whole foods aren't healthy, but then turn around and take an unregulated supplement just is so ass backwards to me.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? And then to turn around, and back to your comment on capitalism, to turn around and have overall systemic issues with our food supply and people's access to these whole foods, to make that more difficult for people to obtain, but then still blame big pharma why we're sick.
Yeah.
And kind of turn around and realize like, oh no, there's larger systemic issues, like even to like pulling funding for meals for kids in schools. Again, we're putting more barriers between us or between people of a certain socioeconomic level from obtaining these foods that we say you should be eating. So then they are having to rely on ultra processed packaged foods that aren't healthy. So like any way you slice it, like they're gonna get it wrong.
Yeah. If you don't put people in the position to have access to things, but also when the goal isn't the utmost health, but it's how much money you can make off of a person, off of our bodies, that's when you're like, oh, once again, I'm in a matrix that is working as it is intended to work. And it's like getting outside of that. And I'm going to reference, have you ever seen the movie Heavyweights?
Yes.
One of my favorite
movies. Elder Millennial, of course.
One of my favorite movies. But what I love is when they take over the camp and then they're like in cooking class, like learning about food and themselves. And it's like, oh, there's something wrong with me, but there has been something wrong with how I've been like presented with food and exercise and like all of these things. And I'm sure no one sees it as like the big cultural touchstone that I see.
And we're led to distrust science and research as opposed to being distrustful of corporations who prioritize profits.
Right.
So I think that is more the matrix, right? That like we're led to believe who the villain is in that scenario.
Yeah, but the villain's also Tony Perkins at the camp. But like,
yes, of course, obviously, yeah. But there is you could say that's like the CEO or the
for sure. He's trying to profit off of them, right? Yeah. That's his whole point. Like I'm selling, a quick weight loss scheme using these kids as my guinea pigs.
Or I'm selling you the thing you didn't know you needed. I know we've talked about that before. Like,
yeah,
I'm selling you the solution to a problem you didn't know you had. And this phrase that I don't know if you follow Dr. Jessica Hernick. She's a
nutritionist.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
no, she's a. I'm sure you know she's got more education than just like a nutritionist. But
yeah, she's a PhD.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay.
So what she says is if you get the problems wrong, you're going to get the solutions wrong as well. And I think we're diagnosing the wrong problems to then present a solution to a problem that they didn't know they had, which they don't really have.
Yeah.
So then you're going to get those solutions wrong as well. Or you're going to be sold a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist, but that they make you feel like exists, right?
Mm-hmm. And you know, the even big, it's like, it's all interconnected too, like you're saying, where it's like, okay, we can talk about big pharma, but like then we end up having a conversation about healthcare in this country, who has access to it, the amount of time people, I mean, at this point,
who profits off of us into a system,
insurance,
having universal, we're for-profit insurance.
Yes, all of that, where, you know, it's, I feel very privileged to, for the most part, have had doctors who are like willing to listen to me about things. But even then, it's a process that takes a lot of time that you have to be able to give said time to, because even coming to the conclusion about like I have a gluten intolerance took over a year's worth of seeing different doctors in different specialties. And
part of me, like, there is a devil's advocate piece to that, where like, in that it is a for-profit institution, like they need to see people at that volume, because the hospitals and the people who accept insurance as opposed to fee-for-service, they're not getting paid that well for that time. So they need to do a certain amount of volume for the then hospital or doctor's office to see profits. So like, it's all very like,
yeah. And so I think even when you have healthcare providers who want to do good with the best of intentions, like you're saying, they're under different pressures, and also it's like, who's actually listening. I can't ignore that women of color have a much harder time in our health.
Literally was going to say that as well. Yeah.
And so, you know, finding someone who's a certain test, like all of these different things, goes to research, as you said, Trump administration pulling, you know, money out of schools for food, but it's also like research that is focused on women, that's focused on women of color, how our bodies react differently to different things, is going to set us back. And also, I think, once again, it's going to be like, okay, well, how do I supplement all these things I think I must need? I can't even make sure I need because
exactly.
You know, so it's all, I mean, it's a little bit depressing, but I'm glad we're having this conversation, because hopefully it encourages people to, like you said, are there ways for me to get this from Whole Foods? Can I get tested for certain things? And I think a lot, though, I mean, for me, I'm always like, I'm a vitamin D deficient. So actually these walks are helping me with that. I'm going outside and being in the sun and those things. And like you said, iron, but you know, I had a friend who was like, yeah, my iron stuff was so low. They want me to do a supplement. And then she was like, I think I might have like H. pylori. And that's what she had. That was what was affecting her ability to absorb. But it was just like, take a thing, you know what I mean? And so that's why I'm saying it's like all in this interconnected web of like, let's put a Band-Aid on the thing. And, you know, it also has to do with, we're very reactive, right? We're not like a preventative medicine country.
We can't make money off of that.
Yeah, that's true. I need you sick. Unfortunately, they do need us a bit.
Well, and I think that's where the conflation happens, right? It's like presuming it's on the physician, but not on the system, right? Like the thing that doctors don't want you to know. No, doctors want you to know that. Scientists want you to know that. They're not gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And if they are, they're probably trying to sell you something.
Right. I'm like, maybe if they own the vitamin company.
Right. So surely there can't be any problems with that.
Yeah. The doctor's like, but if you would like to take Dr. I do have supplements that are available in the lobby, if you would.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not questionable at all.
Yeah, no questioning of the ethics in that. Yeah, I feel like I don't want us leaving people thinking the solve is so huge, because like we just have to revamp big pharma and the medical the healthcare system.
I think the way to kind of tie a bow on this is more
Yeah.
of like an Occam's razor, right?
Mm.
Like the simplest solution is usually the correct one. Like, okay, do I need to supplement, or have I just not eaten a fruit or vegetable in the last week and a half? Like, am I tired because I'm not taking this supplement, or am I tired because I'm stressed and that's affecting my sleep? Right? So it's not this like overly complex, like you're not getting enough like vitamin D3 or the right kind of magnesium. Like maybe we just need a better sleep hygiene routine before we go to bed. Maybe we need to not stare at our phones for 6 hours before we go to bed. Like it's a little more simplistic than I think people want you to believe that it is.
Yeah, and I think you can, like you said, if you try that and there's still an issue, okay, what's the next step of addressing it? Where do I go next to to see what the problem is? But I think you're right in that the go-to at first for a lot of people is, how do I supplement this or do whatever, melatonin, whatever, to go there, as opposed to being like, let's take it a step back. And I think you've been so helpful to me in this process of being like, okay, what's the reason for X? Let's take a step back and interrogate from the start of the issue. And sometimes, I'll admit, like we're all moving so fast.
Yes.
Go, 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 go. And I needed it to be a simple answer, a quick answer, and
a pill I can take.
Right. Yeah, you saying like, how do I remove the barriers to what I think is complicated, and setting yourself up for success in that way takes a little bit of a tweak in the mindset.
100%. Yeah.
For sure. Well, that's great. I hope we can move away from our hyperfixation.
I hope so too. One person at a time.
One person at a time. Yes, that's true. All right. Well, thank you again, Taylor.
You're so welcome.
Okay, this is session number 7.
We made it.
Very exciting. What do you want to know first?
Usually I just kind of start with a rundown of how your week was. Doesn't have to be specific to just nutrition and training, just in general. If you experienced more stressors, or if you felt like it was a smoother week. So just tell me how you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, just a busy week. I was trying to make this a lighter week, because I just wanted to clean my apartment, have everything, I'm kind of one of those people who needs like a clean space, an uncluttered space to work best in. But I only really got one day of just purely cleaning on the schedule, but it's been good. I haven't gotten to do as many walks this week as I got to do the past couple of weeks, so I think I kind of missed that. Like, I was like, oh, I haven't been outside in the same way. But overall, good. Not super stressful. I realized, I think I might have said this to you a couple of weeks ago, but I realized the reason I was sleeping less, like I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm not sleeping 7 hours, is because of the sun. I started once I put my eye mask on, I was back to 7 hours. I was just like, oh, it's just light. The light's waking you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's normal. So you want to wake up when it's light out.
Yeah. So that's it. But nothing really new or that different to report. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I did make an adjustment to your macros for this week. So if you go into Trainerize, I bumped up protein and carbs a little bit. I'd like to see if we can, now that we're intentionally hitting the higher protein target, we're going to take it up a little bit more, take carbs down, and then see what that does to the number on the scale before we go right to cutting calories.
Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, I see. It's like 134 now for protein. Yeah.
So
So I
that,
did see
yeah,
I was
that, huh?
yeah. I did see I was starting to like hit the protein goal.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's gotten easier over time, or it still kind of takes a little bit strategizing?
No, I think it's easier. It's easier. I'm hitting it without having to
Awesome.
think about
That's
it.
great. Yeah. So we want to build on that. Ideally, we're around like 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, especially like for a body composition. We just want to make sure we're eating enough to make sure we support our training. So let's see how that goes going into the next couple weeks.
Okay. Cool. And what was I gonna say? Oh, I after the Norway England game, it was which happened on 7-Eleven, so it was 7-Eleven day. My friends and I went to 7-Eleven, and I saw that
Obviously.
they had like all the Fairlives, they had all the corn
Yeah.
powders, and I was just like, oh, I can. I was like, there's
Perfect.
so now I have more to like incorporate. So it'll be
Excellent.
good.
Yeah. Find one you like, and then just buy them in bulk, just to have
Yeah.
like, not even as like, remember, not as like a main source. It is still a supplement. So when you're kind of stuck or you have a day that you're low, then that's there to kind of make sure we're still getting all the fuel that we need for our muscles to repair themselves.
Yes. Yeah, but good. And don't feel like it's a struggle as much to get up there. There's some days where I'm actually surprised. I'm like, oh, I got close, or like I hit it, and I wasn't even having to like think about it as much as I used to have to think about it, or like how to do it.
That's
That's been
awesome.
nice. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's all I got for you. If you want to dive into this week's
Yes.
topic.
So yes, this week's topic is food is your friend.
Yes.
And I think for me, I've never thought of food as the enemy in any way, shape, or form necessarily, but it's always been like it's that friend you have to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's that friend you have to pay a lot of attention to. You can't let them just be up to their own devices. And I'm curious as to what you feel like. What are the different kinds of ways you see people have come to you, and like what those different kinds of relationships with food tend to be? But also then, second question, how do you help shift that relationship of food from foe to friend?
That's a really tough one, because there is always, maybe not always, but very often an emotional component to why we make the decisions regarding food that we do. And whether that comes from maybe a little bit of scarcity growing up. So if we grew up in an environment where maybe there isn't a lot of food, or we have access to a lot of food, so there can tend to be an attitude towards food. When I'm around it, I need to eat as much of it as I can, because I don't know where my next meal is coming from. So I've definitely had clients where, as we've worked together and as we've gotten more comfortable with each other, they've shared with me maybe they grew up in an environment where they didn't have access to food, or maybe experienced some houselessness. So it's always delicate to dive into that psychological, emotional component of why we make the decisions that we do. Just because sometimes there can be really deep-seated reasons why. Like maybe we grew up with a parent who might have parroted a lot of diet culture around not just how they view food, but how they talk about their bodies can be another kind of triggering thing, especially I would say for women predominantly, but maybe men as well. But just even hearing how they speak about their body, and then diving into that and saying like, oh, that's really interesting that you said that. Like, where do you think that comes from? So It's definitely a delicate topic, but can answer a lot of questions for someone who maybe isn't understanding why, and they're in a place in their lives where I feel like I'm doing everything right, but I don't understand why I'm not seeing the results that I feel like I should have based on the decisions that I'm making.
Yeah. No, it's hard. And almost on the other side, I don't know. I don't know if these are actually on the same spectrum, but you tell me, where there's sometimes I'll see people, I spend entirely too much time on TikTok, but sometimes I'll see people and it's almost like
You're not the
food.
only one.
Yeah, but it's this attitude of food as solely fuel, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous for you to want your food to taste good or for it to be anything but this thing that like fuels my body, because that to me feels like a poor relationship with food as well. And what do
It
you?
definitely is, and it overgeneralizes something that can be very emotional.
Mm,
So I think to think that we live in a society where there is not that emotional connection to maybe cultural food. Maybe you're someone, I'm a Korean adoptee. I grew up with Caucasian parents, and even though I don't have like close ties to Korean food, but there might be someone who, this is a really good example, like maybe you're a kid who grew up in a predominantly Caucasian uh, school setting,
mm,
and you bring your own lunch, and how other kids might view the food that you eat. Maybe they think it's gross, or they tell you it looks like worms or something like that.
mhm.
Like, those are things that we can carry into our adulthood that might affect our decisions and how we view food, and like, oh, I shouldn't eat this, or that, like, those little tiny triggers in our brain definitely influence our decisions and how we view food as an adult.
Mhm. I almost wonder if, like you're saying, because it's people trying to take out the emotional component when it's just like it's a, it doesn't matter if the chicken's seasoned or not. It matters that you have this many grams of protein. It doesn't matter whether or not you like sweet potatoes. You need this amount
Well,
of
and
it.
it's more so the presumption that, like, oh, you should have a very unemotional
Right,
relationship with food because it is just fuel,
right.
when that is very rarely the case.
Yeah, because I would think that they also did, and maybe they're trying to remove that, thing.
Yeah.
So it's almost like two sides, actually, of the same coin.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is would your strategy once again be like, let's talk about why you feel that way, or that you have to approach that differently? That attitude of
I mean, someone who's a little more mechanistic about it, I mean, it just depends on how they are. Like, because I think this goes back to like one of the initial topics we talked about. Like, if someone says, I want to look like this movie star, I want, her butt or whatever, like,
Mhm.
I'm going to need to speak your language
Yeah,
to build a relationship of trust, right? So I'm not going to like immediately shoot that down, but I would like to introduce the idea of more like flexibility in terms of like, because if they're viewing food in that very dichotomous way of like it's fuel or it's not, like our food's good and bad, like are we able to have flexibility, like if we can't eat the most like protein and nutrient dense food, is that gonna completely make us crumble, or can we kind of roll with the punches and go like, you know what, I'm gonna make the best decision that I can, because the food is fuel kind of falls under the same line of like, I'm very regimented in my diet, and if I can't be regimented, then it's gonna, like, I'm gonna have an episode. So as long as there's someone who, yes, maybe they view it that way, but can also enjoy a social event with their
yeah,
friends and family, and it's not affecting them in that way, then it maybe that's just a strategy that they've developed, and that's fine.
mhm.
But if it's bleeding into like how they're living their life and they're becoming a very unpleasant person and they're really struggling, then yes, maybe it's worth exploring the how and the why behind food needing to just be fuel for them.
Yes. Okay, that totally makes sense, and you know, I'm I can't say redeveloping a relationship. I feel like I've always had a pretty good relationship with it, but I think like really learning more from you about how to best fuel my body with the friend that is food is what I feel
Hmm.
like I'm better learning. And, you know, I was talking to Sam at our training session on Tuesday where I was like, the attitude, what I'd always been told when it came to getting in shape was that it always required a deficit. It always required restriction of food. And not that you couldn't have any or that it couldn't be good. My family's from Jamaica. I love Jamaican food. You know, we love rice, very carb heavy on that side of
Yeah.
things. But it would be okay, you have to have less rice and you have to have less meat and you could have more salad if you want. But even then, just everything's proportion coming down, not being taken away. But like that was just always the attitude as opposed to the conversation we had when it was, you know, then it was like, actually, you need more protein. Actually, you need these things. And realizing, oh, I was probably just sending my body into we need to hold on to whatever we have because we're not being fueled. I'm not being fueled well enough. So it has been a lesson for me and an undoing of, you know, a belief that it was always going to be operating at a deficit if you're trying to lose weight or get in shape.
Yeah, our bodies don't, that's a state of stress. That is introducing a stressor to your nervous system and to your body. So to introduce that state or to live in that state when you're already a stressed person is just really not a great recipe for success.
Yeah. Well, I hope we all let's treat food as our friend from now on.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yay, you're welcome.